If you're like me, you were born to surf. Well, maybe not surf that way, but surf the internet. Well, here's something you need to know. The internet is not as family friendly as they would like you to believe. There are thousands, maybe even millions of websites that are trying to steal your data and information. For example, on my most recent adventure to Kentucky, I was at the airport looking up secret classified Bigfoot information. I got a notification that there was multiple trackers tracking me at that moment in time. Now what did I do to solve that issue? Surfshark VPN. You wouldn't share your personal life with strangers on the street. Why would you do that online? The answer is you wouldn't. You gotta protect your identity. You gotta secure your data. You gotta browse privately. So Surfshark encrypts all your data so snoopers cannot snoop. Sometimes if you're traveling and you're in a pinch, you need to check how much money you got, and you're on some public Wi-Fi, you don't want those people to know what you're doing. That's why you use Surfshark VPN, and they can't see what you're doing online. What I also love about Surfshark VPN is you can use it on unlimited devices. You know, I have anywhere between like 4 or 5 devices with me, all hooked up to the internet. I'm trying to stream content on all of them, all at the same time, and I can use Surfshark on every single one while I'm doing it. If this sounds like a lot of technical know-how, don't worry. Surfshark VPN makes it super easy to use and understand. You don't have to be a tech whiz in order to just mask and encrypt all your data. I know Black Friday just happened, but I'm telling you, this is a steal. Purchasing a 24-month subscription to Surfshark VPN is probably one of the best decisions you can make right now. How good? How does 85% off and 3 months free sound? Yeah, sounds pretty good. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and use my promo code.
Don't let people take secret Bigfoot information from your devices. Use Surfshark to ensure your privacy.
That's about all, and I'll catch you out there on those internet waves.
The Chestnut Ridge is home to almost everything that goes bump in the night. It may be a place of pleasant hikes and welcoming meadows during the day, but when the sun goes down, the phantoms and beasts start to creep out from their caves and hiding places. They venture out under the cover of darkness, going about their business and terrifying those who are unlucky enough to come across them. But the Chestnut Ridge is also home to those who look for the phantoms of the night, the people who want to shine light on a subject so shrouded in mystery.
My name is Ron Murphy, and my connection with the paranormal goes back since I've been a child. My mother was a huge fan of everything that goes bump in the night, and I kind of, rubbed off on me. I remember, listening to Stan Gordon on the radio back whenever I was a kid, and he would talk about strange sightings in the Chestnut Ridge area. And the next day, my mom and I, we would go out in her broken down vehicle with 4 bald tires and no spare, and we would go investigate the areas where Stan Gordon said there were sightings of Bigfoot.
Yes, my name is Brian Seach. I'm the co-founder of the Center for Cryptozoological Studies and the Center for Unexplained Events, along with my wife Terry. We've been researching the unknown and unexplained since 1986. We're interested in all sorts of paranormal phenomena, UFOs, Bigfoot, and we enjoy what we're doing.
Okay, my name's Tom Mihawk. I've investigated the paranormal since 2004. The last several years, I've really switched over from hauntings and things like that to cryptozoology. Fortunate enough to meet Eric Altman, Stan Gordon, got in with a really good crew, joined the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, which I'm a field researcher for. So I've been going out with that group the last few years and learning this part of the paranormal.
My name is Eric Altman. born and raised in this area, and I've been investigating the Chestnut Ridge probably for close to 26 years now. Studying the phenomenon for maybe 40 years, but looking into and actually investigating cases and claims for probably 26 years.
Every researcher at one point in their life decided that pursuing the mysteries of the world was how they wanted to pass their time.
What's interesting is I grew up in Blairsville, which is right at the foot of the Chestnut Ridge, and there's really not much to do there. Basically a very Norman Rockwell-esque type of place. Not a lot of stuff goes on. Everybody knows everybody else. But in the winter of 1977, which was a devastating winter, things started to begin to happen around my town. News crews started to show up from Pittsburgh because Bigfoot was being sighted. It was just a great time to be a kid, and that has stayed with me ever since. So then I went to college and I got my BA in literature, and I started to recognize that there was these creatures that they would call wild men, evident in almost every culture around the world. Since that time, I was trying to bring the academic approach to the way I look at myths and legends.
Well, growing up, I was and I still am a big sci-fi geek, monster geek. We grew up with Chiller Theater. I don't know if you guys remember that. So I was always into monsters, UFOs, everything. I was always into all of the creepy stuff. And my wife and I started our groups in 1986 because we found out that we both had an interest in the paranormal. Q, an acronym, was Center for Unexplained Events. We wanted to make that a clearinghouse for all unexplained phenomena, whether it be ghosts, UFOs, time slips, or whatever's in the unexplained realm. So we wanted to take that also to other states, which really, right now we live in Weirton. We moved to Weirton from Pennsylvania, and I didn't want to name it West Virginia Q, or I just wanted to keep it Q. But we have always been interested, and we found out that the Chestnut Ridge here up in Westmoreland has all kind of strange things, whether it be UFO, ghosts, Thunderbirds. And we joined the PA Bigfoot Society, and we started to research the area up here with them.
For some, it is as simple as fulfilling their childhood dreams, while others are drawn to something they personally witnessed.
My name is Mary Fabian, and I am from the Laurel Highlands area, from a little town called Vanderbilt. I was born in Connellsville, and we used to go camping up here in the Farmington area near Fort Necessity. Whenever we would camp at Fort Necessity, the campground is long gone. And every morning I would get out of the trailer and I would run and hike the trails all by myself. I was just a little, maybe 11 years old, something like that. And I wouldn't come home or come back to the campground until supper time, whenever I would get hungry later or it was getting dark. As I was hiking through all the trails, I would find what we know of as structures, tree structures. And even at that age, even before anyone knew anything about structures, I could see they were unusual. They caught my eye. And I could tell, well, these are different. And I would hike near there, and I would have rocks thrown at me, acorns and rocks, just little pebbles, nothing big and nothing major. I never heard anything, I never seen anything, but I could, of course, tell, okay, you're not wanted here. If something's throwing rocks at you. I saw one in Allegheny County. I lived on a farm, and I was hiking back behind my farm, and saw one coming out of the woods, and he crossed my path. I was a kid then also. I was right around the same age, maybe 11 or 12. And he just crossed the path, stopped and looked at me, and continued on. Nothing threatening, just a benign look. Again, this was before even the Patterson-Gimlin film, so we had no idea what I had seen. All I saw, was a big man who had a Neanderthal-type face, wearing a heavy fur coat in the middle of summer.
Whatever the reason that pushes someone to become a researcher, the result is the same. A lifetime of unexplained experiences with only bits and pieces of the puzzle assembling from each encounter. But they also serve a functional purpose.
A lot of these witnesses that we talk to, they want answers. So we're almost like detectives, if you will, trying to get to the bottom of what happened, why it happened to them, because they want to know what they saw, why they saw it, why did it happen to them. So we're not only trying to find out for ourselves, but we're trying to provide like a peace of mind for them so they have a better understanding and so they're not spooked to go out of their house the next day. And once we establish that there's something truly happened, if we find evidence or not, we document that report, we put it in a database so we can refer to it later on. Or if we start to see a flat buildup, we can go back and continue to research that area. And we talk with those other researchers, we share that information with them. They can come in and investigate too, so we can compare notes and see if they found anything we might have missed. Some eyewitnesses are willing to talk with just one investigator and that's it, while others are open, saying, you know what, I have nothing to hide. We'll talk to whoever. And there's a family I mentioned briefly about in Point Marion that has a farm that has opened up their farm to investigators to come in and investigate. It's a really fascinating place, but some are just shy and just, this is what I saw, and they're done. And they never want to talk about it again. Some people just get the courage and the nerve to finally come forward, or they see a newspaper article or they see a TV show and they feel comfortable enough to share their story that happened to them when they were a kid, or happened 10 years ago. They finally feel comfortable enough, and they see that there are reputable groups such as mine that take their report seriously. We don't ridicule them, we don't make fun of them, we don't give them false hope. We just tell them, hey, this is what we're looking into, this is what we found, this is what we think might have happened, and let them, kind of absorb that knowledge, and hopefully that provides some peace of mind and some comfort for them. Some people just never tell their encounters. I'm willing to bet there are more people that have reported stuff happen to them that haven't come forward than have. I really am.
The fear of ridicule, for many, is very real. While a subset of the public is slowly growing to accept stories of the bizarre, public reception has not much changed over the course of human history. Monsters don't exist. There are no apes in the woods of North America. Extraterrestrial visitors are nothing more than colorful characters in Flash Gordon comics. Those who claim to have seen any of the above are loony. Simple as that, deserving neither respect nor recognition. Some who have experiences with the unknown are those very people who claim such things. These hardcore skeptics find themselves in a bind. Once they become the object of their derision, their world flips upside down as they, once normal and average people, are now the so-called loonies who see hidden apes in the woods. And it is people like these to whom researchers offer a space to discuss these life-altering events.
It's up in the mountains. It's off of Skyline Drive, which is the same road as Laurel Caverns. I was actually at a windmill farm that was being built. That's where it transpired, which is considered Farmington, PA.
Did you work there, or why were you there?
I actually had a warrant. I used to be a Pennsylvania State Constable, had a warrant in that area. Never did catch the guy, but one day I was leaving the area and a worker came out in the middle of the road, flagged me down. He thought I was police, and they caught a guy in the back stealing copper off of a spool of copper. So that's how I got the job there. I started in June of 2011. The very first night I was there, I had a rock thrown at my car. It landed, I was sitting in a parking lot and it landed on the roof of my car. There is one home in the area, which is probably about 500 yards down the road, and it's just absolute quiet. You can hear a pin drop. And I got out of my vehicle and I was a little bit irate. A big rock hitting the roof of my car, but it was just dead silence. just dead silence. And it just like made the hair, what hair I have, stand up on the back of my neck. And after that, we're reoccurring, like wood knocks down over the hill towards Quebec Run behind me, which goes down to 857. I heard a branch break to my left one night, and it was probably 50 yards away, and I shined my light over, and just red piercing eyes. You know, it blinked at me once, and then that was the end of that. Just numerous, you know, screams, whoops. This just went on for months. I had no idea what it was. You know, I expect to see people up there trying to steal something, but, you know, to no avail. I didn't see any people. So, but I mean, this did go on for months.
Did you see anything?
No, I didn't see anything until September 8th of 2011. That's when I saw, about 25 yards away from me, there's a telephone pole with a halogen street light and then an 8-foot piece of plywood with all the electrical meters for the office trailers, which are like 22 feet away from the pole, and there's 6 of them. And I was sitting there in my car, and I'm looking at my phone, and I look up and I see in the corner of the bottom of the pole a black round object. So I looked at it, and it didn't move, so I just disregarded it for like an animal. And then I looked back up, and underneath the light was a big black blob, like hunched over. And I'm looking at it, and I said, what the hell is that? And then it stood up. And when it stood up, it stood up. There's a peg on the pole, which is about 8 feet off the ground for like the utility workers to climb up. And its head was probably about a foot above that. Jet black in color, I saw everything. I saw its face, chest, from the light above. And it looked at me, it turned to the left, took a step, and looked back at me, and then took 4 steps. And it was behind the first office trailer. It was just jet black in color, reminded me of my dog's coat, fur, like a Labrador. Cone-shaped head, arms, hands, down below its knees, and just immense. I mean, immense. And it was probably about as wide as 2 linebackers off of any NFL football team. It was just huge. And when it turned sideways, its thighs, its thighs were like this wide, just huge. I wasn't in fear for my life sitting in my vehicle, but it was just, I was in awe. And like I said, it just turned, took 4 steps, and it was behind the first office trailer, in which I got out of my vehicle and I ran over there, and I had my weapon out and I had my flashlight, and I yelled at it, and it just walked away. And all I could see, and I had an LED light, all I could see was a silhouette of it, because it blended into the nighttime so well. All I could see was just a silhouette, and it just walked off. And I felt really stupid afterwards, because it could have turned around and probably killed me, but it chose not to. So, but I had a chance to shoot, but it didn't pose a threat to me, so I didn't shoot it. The Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society came up, and that's when they came up that same night. That same morning I contacted them and did an outing at night. And they determined when they came back, there was 3 people in each group and there was 4 groups, and they determined there was 3 of them there due to call blasting and all that. So, but they determined there was 3 Bigfoots there, probably a family. And Eric Altman, he advised me, he said, the mail showed itself to you for you to leave, and you didn't leave. So they should leave you alone. And they were up there for 2 night investigations, and I went back up the 3rd night, just total peace. They never bothered me again. That's the truth. And I know what I saw, and I'm here to tell you they're real. They're not fake.
In a place such as the Chestnut Ridge, from which strange phenomena seemingly emanate in abnormal amounts, Sightings like this are not isolated incidents. Instead, sightings of strange phenomena seem to be the underreported norm.
I've had multiple friends at work, talk about different situations. It seems like, anybody that spends any time in the woods around here has an experience, at least one that they talk about. People that, you never would have thought, and you mentioned that now that I do the investigating and they know that I do that, some people come forward and be like, oh yeah, I have something that happened to me that I never told anybody about. I had a friend who was out parking with a girl and had two red eyes that he caught staring at him from in the trees that just disappeared, It's all on Chestnut Ridge, just different parts of it.
One of the phenomena that the ridge is known for is hauntings. I mean, there's so many places along the ridge, there's too many to count. On several occasions, at different spots, myself, Eric Altman, other people, we've experienced whispering and mumbling within the trees, or right to the side of the brush. Nobody was there. We couldn't make out what was being said, but it was just a faint mumbling. We would pick it up with a parabolic microphone as clear as day. Looked around, there's nobody there. Used the thermal imaging, nobody there.
On 2 different occasions on my investigation, I've encountered what I called the voices. There was an encounter that I had down at a place called Livermore, wherever a fellow investigator was investigating a werewolf sighting, a Dogman sighting. And as we were being followed by something in the woods, I heard my name very distinctly being called off to the left. It just said Ron. But what was so unusual about that is that the sound of my name being called actually led us back to the path that we needed. That was the first time I ever encountered such an incident whenever my name was being called by something disembodied. The other times that I've heard these whispers, if you will, involved some sort of light anomaly occurring before or during this.
People will sometimes report seeing orbs, and I know that there are also UFO reports. Other people take those reports. I deal with Bigfoot. I leave the UFO and other phenomenon to other researchers.
Probably the strangest thing would be seeing these lights in the trees. There's a lot of theories on what they are. Some people think they're ghosts or spirits. Some people think they're part of the Fae and, they're fairy lights. I think that's really been the strangest thing for me, because we just can't explain it. I mean, I don't even know where to begin to explain it. It just, the places that I've seen these lights, not in the Betty Knox area, but the other 2, those locations aren't associated with a haunting per se. So I wouldn't think they'd be explainable as ghosts. Could they be fairies? I guess it could be some sort of elemental spirit or entity. They're just so mysterious, and they come in different shapes, sizes. I've heard different researchers talk about real big ones. Some are dark red, some are more white in color. It just seems that there's so many variations, you really can't categorize them.
So I've had some really cool experiences here. The one that comes to my mind first is while I was out at Gray Station, which is a very active area of the ridge. I was out with Billy Willard, a former researcher, Phil Bracco, another researcher, and a friend of mine who was new to this field. And we had walked down the train tracks probably about 2 miles, and there was a soybean field off to our right and a wooded area off to the left. And we set up, Billy and Phil were off to looking at the woods, and my friend and I were out looking at the soybean field. Soybean field was cool because the fog starts rolling in, you have the state mental hospital behind, just like a scene out of a horror movie. And then I hear Billy yell, "Hey, I have some eye shine down here." So I go up, walk down, and sure enough, you look over, you can see the eye shine coming out of trees, just big orange, massive looking eyes that were blinking on and off at a rhythmic state. Nothing that you could tell was static standing there, wasn't reflectors or anything like that. It started to rain pretty heavy and as we're packing up, a rock gets thrown at us. Well, that's kind of an impetus for us to start moving a little faster, and as we're walking down, a softball-sized rock gets hurled between myself and Billy, missed my face about this much. If it had hit me, it probably would have broke my nose, or it was pretty intense. That was one instance. I recorded an interesting exchange of vocalizations between myself and something in Keystone State Forest. It was just at the, not too far away from a general parking area. We had gone into the woods, hiked in about maybe a mile, and we started hearing this, what literally sounded like a cow in the woods, right? So I mimic it back, and not too much longer it mimics back to me.
So why are we just now hearing it?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Did you hear that? No. That's 3 times I've heard that. That cow?
I don't know.
So we start moving our way back to the source of the sound, and this exchange is just going back and forth. And on the recording, my friend Chuck, you could hear him say,
He likes you.
like whatever it is, like we're getting a response.
Oh. 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 Oh.
Brought it to Stan Gordon. I asked Stan, how far is the closest farm or something around here? Is it practical for a cow to get lost in the woods or another type of animal? And Stan goes, I don't know, I've never heard that before. So that was pretty interesting.
But every experience comes with a disclaimer. Not every forest sound is attributable to Sasquatch. Sometimes the woods have plenty of strange noises, especially those unaccustomed to the sounds of nature.
And again, most people are going to tell you, you hear something in the woods, doesn't mean it's Bigfoot. You hear something drop from the tree, it's not really Bigfoot. Or slight chance, okay, some of your tree bends, some of your, crosses, X's, whatever you do. Yes, they may be related to Bigfoot, but I think a lot of people just automatically say, hey, I walked in the woods, I saw an X, Bigfoot made that. The one thing we did learn from the PA Bigfoot Society, which we take to heart, is not everything is Bigfoot. You can't say it's Bigfoot. If you didn't see Bigfoot actually make that arch or make that X or make that twist, you can't really say it's Bigfoot. You really can't. And all of the sightings we've taken, we've had one report in Mercer County where the gentleman actually saw a Bigfoot. He was shaking the tree, shaking it, and the guy got scared and he left. This was right outside of Grove City, and probably in 2005 or 2006. And he didn't say he bent it, broke it, he just shook it. And I heard of a secondhand report down in Salt Fork State Park, which you're familiar with, that a creature was shaking this tree so violently, it was a very tall tree, you could see the top of the tree sway back and forth. So again, does Bigfoot do these? He may. But we never really even post many pictures of some of those finds because I can't say it's Bigfoot. I want to be honest with people. It takes a lot for us to post something that we think may be Bigfoot. I'd rather not have anything than having things that I think are kind of suspicious because it's not worth it.
However, that doesn't mean you can't deduce aspects of Sasquatch behavior based upon legitimate sightings.
There's always a creek or a pond or something nearby. That's why I check Google Maps first to see, okay, what other features are in the area. Occasionally there's a power line cut or a gas line cut. They'll mostly hang around the one area year-round. They really won't go beyond a 50-mile circumference because they won't endanger their breeding females or the babies by traveling too far. They'll pretty much stay within a 50-mile circumference. They'll feed out an area in a couple days and they'll go and feed out that area. And they'll just circle around within this area And it'll take about 2 to 3 weeks for them to make the circle and return back again.
And yet, there are still the strange and truly odd cases of Sasquatch observed amongst other phenomena.
There's reports where you'll have something more supernatural happen. There have been historical sightings on the ridge where they're seen at the same time with UFOs and things like that. You know, and then there's some where it seems to be just more of a physical incident, or what a lot of people would consider a flesh and blood creature, to where you're just finding footprints, or you're finding, you know, maybe a hair sample on the brush or something to that effect. And that's one of the things that really makes the Chestnut Ridge unique, because you don't just have one specific phenomena, you have really just a wide variety of things happening. Everything from Bigfoot, hauntings, UFOs, other cryptids, you know, like thunderbirds. We've had people report seeing mountain lions on the ridge when they're not supposed to be in Pennsylvania. We've even had, in years past, at least one Dogman report that I'm aware of. So it's really been all over the map.
What I tell everyone, though, is whenever it comes to Bigfoot, they will put out infrasound. That has been proven scientifically. A friend of mine is a NASA scientist who discovered the correlation between Bigfoot and infrasound. Infrasound has many physical things that it will do to your body physically. It'll give you amnesia, migraines, upset stomach, diarrhea, hallucinations. There's things that if it can be scientifically explained, I will go to that first before I go to the paranormal, such as portals or something else.
What about characteristics of tracks that are found?
3-toed, 4-toed. We have a very good 4-toed one from Paul Johnson that they took in 1974 in Allegheny County. 2 kids were looking out in their yard and they had a lighted Christmas tree. So this Bigfoot came and he was looking at the Christmas tree, because Bigfoot likes Christmas like me and you, right? I love Christmas. So these kids see this creature and it looks at them and walks off into the woods. Well, they called Dr. Paul Johnson, the Center for UFO Research, and one of the members came out late that night into early morning and casted these large 4-toed prints, which we still have one of the originals that Paul gave us. There's been 3-toed ones taken by Stan in Greensburg. We have a 5-toed one taken by Bob France, and most of them do appear to be 5-toed. And Paul Johnson always said how he always determined real ones is the width was half the length. So if there was a 14-inch print, the width at the highest part would be 7 inches. So he always goes by that.
And then you got the cases of footprints, where you've got the trails of tracks that suddenly abruptly end when there should have been more tracks, even in the snow, which is very, very interesting.
We had a report come in 2003 where a hunter had claimed to have seen one moving through the woods. I didn't investigate that. I didn't know much detail about it. But following that, there was heavy snowfall up on top of the mountain. So 4 of us got in this guy's old Cherokee Chief. It was a beast. We took off and made it to the top of the mountain. No sign of any other activity, no tire treads, nobody's footprints, nothing. We were the only ones in this heavy snow. It was an 8-inch snowfall on the road, and when we got out, we were up to almost our knees in 15 inches of snow. We got out on the top peak of this mountain, which is the highest point in southwestern Pennsylvania, 2,610 feet. And we spread out looking, hoping to find any tracks or anything. We found what we think was mountain lion. We found a series of tracks as big as the palm of my hand, and they had 3.5 foot stride. And what was so good about it was, as we're following this off of the top of the mountain down to this logging road, it had a distinctive drag mark that looked like that tail that I saw in 2005. So we followed this, what looked like a mountain lion tracks, down to this old abandoned logging road. When we get down to the logging road, mysteriously the mountain lion tracks disappeared. And we're spreading out again, trying to pick them up, thinking it might have jumped in a tree or jumped off the trail. As we're doing that, we find the best Bigfoot, and I'll say they're Bigfoot, or they were a human up there with 17-inch footprints. Well, what's kind of bizarre is the logging road was, 12, 15 inches of snow. Whatever this was parallel with the road as we followed the trackway. The ice and snow had been there for several days or weeks, and it had become compact, compressed. We walked over into the side, and we only went down a couple inches, and we're all grown men. Two of the guys were pretty heavy guys, and they weren't doing any damage to the snow or ice. Whatever this was compressed the snow down to within 1 inch or 2 inches of the ground. It was easily impressions that were clean toe marks and clean footprints in snow 15 inches, and it was the weight of it. And then we noticed that the stride was 4.5 feet, clean, no drag marks. It was picking its feet up and putting them 4.5 feet, and almost what now has become known where they were this way. They weren't side by side like humans walk. This was a straight trail. We followed that trackway almost 1/8 of a mile, several hundred yards. It was as clean all the way from the time we found the first track to where they finally just disappeared. They stopped. We come to an opening that was easily 30 feet clearance. No trees, nothing. And they were in that, and they just like, that thing just vaporized, just vanished. Well, we made jokes. One of the guys said, well, maybe the aliens, the UFOs came and picked it up and took it up with them. I said, well, not much else makes any sense. Where'd this thing go that we've been following? And the tracks are here. And I said, it couldn't have stepped backwards and went all the way back to where we started and not leave some kind of other indication. I tried to replicate it because I'm 6'2" again. I was the tallest guy in the group, and I could barely get a 2-foot stride. And that was me stretching as hard as I could. And I was knocking the snow down. I was dragging my toe trying to get it out of I put my foot down in its impression, and I picked my foot up and tried to move it, and I couldn't do it. Since that time, Dr. Meldrum and the military has released a spray that you can actually make a cast in the snow. Back then, we didn't have anything like that. That would have been the best castings that we probably could have ever found. They were the cleanest tracks I've ever seen.
With its ever-shifting forms and ever-evolving mysteries, what solid ground is there on which to stand for researchers of the Ridge? What tools and practices can one rely on when the tracks just simply disappear?
Our group, CCS, we look to get sighting reports always. Any group out there looks to get sighting reports, and they're hard to get.
Through emails, through phone calls, word of mouth, other researchers contacting me. So there's a variety of different ways we get the report. And then if the eyewitness is willing to talk with us, it's either done by a phone call to make arrangements to meet with them, or an email, or some kind of first communications made. Then we meet with the eyewitness and in hopes that they'll take us to the location and walk us through what they saw so we can see the area and get a better understanding of what they experienced. Some witnesses do it, some witnesses don't, but we've had pretty good success with them meeting us at the location and walking us through it. From there, we have someone take notes, what they're telling us in person, and we look for emotion, body language, retelling of the story from the first time they told it. So we're looking for a lot of different factors. We're also looking for environmental situations that might have caused something for that animal to be seen there at that time, or that sighting to occur. Topography, population, whether it's rural or populated. Just a lot of things that might attribute to what caused the sighting or what led to that sighting. And then we begin to look at historical data to see if there's been other sightings there, other encounters, how close is the most recent sighting. And once we gather up all this information, we can put together a pretty good idea of what happened, why it happened, and try to get some answers from that.
We'll go out, depending on how many people we have with us on a given night, we may break up into 2 or 3 groups, have walkie-talkies, the animal call recorders and things like that, infrared, thermal imaging, and we'll space out a good bit. And we'll start off by just listening at first, trying to get an idea of if anything's just moving around, if it's an active night. Eventually we'll go into some tree knocking or some calls, things like that. We'll use the call sounds, the distressed animal sounds a lot to try to elicit some type of response. A lot of times it seems to work, but a lot of times it's animals that we can identify. There have been a few occasions where we get that high-pitched howl or some type of growl, something that we just can't identify. It's a little more rare, but it happens occasionally.
Many people researching the Chestnut Ridge have been looking for answers for decades. While their hypotheses about the phenomena may be more thought out than others, the truth of it has not yet been obtained. Only crumbs of truth from every sighting add to the collective whole, a whole that is still woefully incomplete. Many of us can only take an unanswered question for so long, but when you have a problem whose solution cannot be Googled, how does one find the inspiration to keep going?
We haven't solved the mystery yet. That's what keeps me going. There's something out here that people are seeing, something I've seen, and it's not recordable, right? There's no zoologist that's going to come out and tell you that, Bigfoot is real. There's no fossil record of it unless you count Gigantopithecus, right? And that's its own story in itself. There's so much that we don't know. And even those fantastical paranormal elements, they're still intriguing enough to kind of hook you. If there's a Bigfoot, that's where I'm going to be. If those other things happen, that's great. Somebody else can deal with that. I want to deal with the Bigfoot. That's why I keep coming back. I want to eventually be part of that group that says, hey, it was all worth it. I've spent over 25 years reading and researching and going out and spending a lot of time. I'd like to have something to show for it and not look like a fool when the topic gets brought up.
What keeps you going, man? Is that the ultimate?
Oh, definitely. My ultimate goal. I want to see it. I've got to prove to that little kid in the 70s who sat there and watched all of these documentaries on TV. I want to prove to him, prove to myself, that kind of like I haven't wasted my time on chasing something that's not there. And I've talked to the eyewitnesses. I believe it's out there. I've talked to them. You look into their eyes, you look at the reaction, the goosebumps on their arm. They've seen something. You cannot convince me they're not seeing something. I don't know what the phenomena is. Somehow it's either out there or it's being seen. I mean, there's no doubt to me. Whether they exist like you want to say a bear exists, I don't know, but I know they're being seen. The phenomena is real, or else we wouldn't have spent all of our time, money, and effort over the 30-some years researching it. Whether we're talking to somebody on the phone out in the woods or researching through a magazine. Wouldn't have done it if I didn't think there was some truth to it. I can tell you that.
For me, I've never seen one in person, but I've had enough anecdotal things happen to me, whether a stone being thrown or a stick being thrown or hearing a wood knock or hearing some sort of unexplained vocalization or coming across a track, to know that there is something out there. And what that something is, that's why we make movies and investigate this stuff, right? But it affects you. If you keep an open mind, what it does is it puts us in our place as human beings. We're filled with hubris. We think that we know everything that there is to know out there. But when we encounter Bigfoot and we encounter the supernatural, that shows us that we don't know everything, that beyond our electric lights and our knowledge, somewhere in the shadows, there is something prowling around. There are still those things that go bump in the night that give us pause. And that, as a researcher, that's why I continue at it. That is how it's affected me. It allows me to see the world as far more wondrous and kind of magical than a normal person, I think. But what keeps me going is an encounter that I had whenever I was in graduate school. My brother and I, we moved into a place that was very close to the woods, and we noticed that in the summertime, we would hear some sort of whistling. So we would hear whoop, whoop, like that, okay? Not quite a whistle, but some sort of vocalization going on. It only happened in the summer. It only happened on days whenever it wasn't raining. And it always happened between 12 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Always. I mean, you could set your clock to it. So this happened for 1 year. And I thought, strange, whatever. The next summer it begins again. So this time I said to my brother, I said, if this happens again, let's go investigate it. I'm in my 20s, he's in his 20s, we're fit individuals. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. So one morning, about 2:30 in the morning, the whistling starts again, the whoop, whoop. So we thought, this is it, we're going to go investigate. So I grab a sword. Any good story like this should have a sword involved. And he grabbed a baseball bat, and we decided to go out and find out what was going on. This was the first time I was ever outside and I heard the whooping going on. And it wasn't only auditory, but you could feel it in your chest as well too. Whatever was making the sound, it was as if there was a vibrational frequency to it. That was off-putting, but again, two guys in their 20s with weapons, we can do this, right? So we go out to our backyard to where a grove of trees starts the big forest behind us. And we knew that whatever was in there was the creature that was making this whistling sound. So we enter into this little grove and the whooping continues, but something is also growling at us at the exact same time. And not only was it snarling and growling, it was taking in air. You could hear it taking in air to the point that it sounded like it was very wet as well. And as any two 20-year-olds carrying a baseball bat and a sword would do, we ran like hell back to our house. And that was the last we heard of it. This confrontation was the last time my brother and I ever heard. But I mean, there was something going on. So I decided to ask neighbors. I said, look, did you ever hear anything like this? And this lady said, no, I never did. But I will tell you, one morning we saw this very large gentleman going through our garbage. So I thought, look, there's more to this that's going on. So I hopped on the internet. Back in the day, we're talking about, this is like 1996. You type in Bigfoot in Pennsylvania, and one site came up, and that was the PA Bigfoot Society. So I hurried up and called him. I said, hey, I heard something I can't explain. I'm an intelligent person, I'm educated, I'm not crazy, but I heard this strange whistling, this is what happened. And that's how I met Eric Altman. His investigation was his first investigation that he ever did into what was going on with us. And ever since that time, I've been hooked with what's going on there. Like I said, I've had enough anecdotal things happening to me to suggest that there's something above and beyond our knowledge going on, right? And although I investigate all the time, and although I interview people all the time, we're always going to be left with a question mark. I don't think that this is something that's ever going to be solved definitively. I think there's so much going on out there, so many gray areas. There's a lot of dots to be connected. And I think that when we look at the world around, we see the images in all cultures of the wild man and images of shapeshifters. And it's really part of who we are. It's part of our collective unconscious, really. And that's what keeps me going, to see that this is something that's cultural and that it really connects us as human beings as well.
Whatever magic or wonder there may be in the world, sometimes inspiring, sometimes terrifying, it surely seems to be hidden here in the Chestnut Ridge. Many have tried to solve its mysteries. None have succeeded, the truth eluding even the most dedicated of researchers. If there is a portal somewhere in the Laurel Highlands and Chestnut Ridge, we still have not found it. Or if there is some reason these entities are drawn here instead of other places, we do not know it. The Chestnut Ridge, permanent in its impermanence, sits high above those who would seek to understand it, but also is a beacon, drawing many to continue searching for answers, even when there seems that there aren't any. The missing pieces to this puzzle, whatever they may be, might not ever be found in our lifetime, but we'll keep searching. As long as people keep seeing what should not exist, and others keep inquiring about it, the quest for knowledge will continue until the truth is finally unearthed.